Hello everyone, we are very happy to be joining you at the Maritime SheEO conference here from Copenhagen on this beautiful rainy day.
We are Fürstenberg Maritime Advisory here in Copenhagen, and we're going to take you through some stories and advice on startups reaching maritime corporates. So, Sofia, the idea here is to go through three different stories that we have regarding startups working with corporates in the maritime space.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll kick off with the first story that you have. What happened there?
Yeah, I think there are lots of important learnings from this story. So this was a pioneering efficiency technology, and this technology was really the first of the kind, and they managed to secure a pilot trial with one of the big shipping companies. And this was huge news. It was all over the media. And so this was like a kind of, this was very important for this company to have success on this trial. The trial started off and went on for over 2 years. It was a long and complex project. And as it's often with pioneering technologies, you don't have a trial plan. This has to be developed from scratch. And so as it happened, when these trials were done, the results were inconclusive. Okay. They couldn't actually validate if whether this technology had a significant fuel efficiency or not.
After 2 years?
After 2 years. And this was, of course, very concerning. Yeah, and they spent, I think, a good third year to try and go through the results and try to look at it differently and come up with a good conclusion. During this time, there was a change in management with the shipping company. The project manager, he took a position outside the company, and the department got a new director. Okay. And so this director then had no legacy with this project. And so when he received these results on the table, he decided that we will stop. We will discontinue this collaboration. And on top of that, there was also a public announcement in the media about these inconclusive results. And Conor, when this happened, this pioneering company, they were in a really bad position. Okay. And they were facing years of struggle.
Uphill struggle to get back into the...
Yeah.
So what were the main factors that caused this?
Yeah, so I think that there are a couple of things here that happened. First, I think the pioneering technology company, they overpromised. They came in on, this grand level, promising maybe 10-15% savings.
Okay, like double digit, yeah.
So that was... I'm not saying that was unsubstantiated, but it of course created a lot of, attention. Then I think they were lacking an exit strategy. They had placed kind of, how do you say, all the eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
So when the project kind of struggled to conclude on the results, or even before that, they had no ways of taking another tack. And then thirdly, there was this maybe ignorance about things can change in big companies. How do you prepare for that risk when suddenly your project is maybe not prioritized anymore, or maybe a new party comes in, or the old people leaves? how do you safeguard for that?
Yeah, and this goes back to having an exit strategy and.
Yeah. So it was very unfortunate for both parties, because of course this was a great investment on both sides, but the party that suffered the most was not the shipping company.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, I think that was my first story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shall I share?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was about an efficiency technology, which was not totally at the startup point. It had already got some traction in the industry a little bit, so it was more starting to scale up.
Yeah.
It had originally approached quite an important player for a trial, perhaps earlier in its journey, and had been refused or turned down, however you like to put it. So it had gone away, found someone else, a smaller company to trial.
Yeah.
Had some quite good results from that, which were supporting their case quite well.
Yeah.
Very well, you could say.
Yeah.
So they decided to go back again to the bigger player to try and get a bigger exposure, perhaps with a bigger fleet, etc., etc.
Okay.
And it raised their profile quite a lot. When they did that, though, they had made a few presumptions and took a few actions which maybe didn't help them that much.
Okay.
They went in with their technical sales manager and tried to approach the company through a different person.
Yeah.
Feeling that the first approach hadn't worked through such and such, they were going to try a slightly different angle.
Okay.
Which made some sense from some points of view. They went in, they had a number of interactions, and at the end of the day, unfortunately, for the second time, they were turned down, which was very disappointing. They were very surprised about this. They had a bank guarantee which was covering an eventuality where they had to remove the equipment, the test equipment, from a test vessel.
Yeah, and wasn't that good?
That should have been very attractive. And they had some very good figures from the trial from the other side. So they were rather perplexed about this.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it didn't work out.
And so why was that, you think?
Well, maybe there was a few things they didn't realize about the culture, the corporate culture, the way the larger companies work. So one of them is if you go back into the same company, even if you go in through a different focal point and maybe even a different silo, let's call it, a different functional element, they will still go through a process of digging up the last contact, digging up the last people you were in contact
Of course
with.
they will. That's common practice.
And in fact, it might be the bigger the organization, the more standardized their procedures are for dealing with startups approaching in this way.
So how was this seen, you think, that they did this?
Well, I think it was okay. They did say that they had had a previous contact, but some startups may decide to opt not to mention that, and that's not going to look very good, because it means that the people they come back to the second time will have a harder time digging out the original information.
Yeah.
The other thing that they did was they were still guarding quite closely their IP, if you like, the finer detail of how they got the test results with the other company they had furthered their work with, and that didn't help them very well in convincing the technical department that they actually had a case.
But surely they need to protect their IP. So what could they have done different?
They do, but there are mechanisms and there are ways to do that, and maybe they didn't spend enough time trying to explore the best way to do that and come to the company with something ready-made in that respect.
Because the technical management at the ship owners,
they don't necessarily, that's not their focus, that's not their skill set really, necessarily at least.
But they want to understand how the results have been created, and they want to have belief in the technology. Because
before investment takes place, somebody from the technical department has to tick their box. And they also were a little bit overconfident with the business case in terms of the bank guarantee.
Yes.
the risk to the ship owner was not necessarily whether the equipment worked or not per se, and whether the expense would have to be incurred removing it again, but there was the risk of consequential loss if the equipment didn't perform.
And this is what they didn't really understand.
This is they didn't seem to understand that. The potential losses to the owner were well over and above the cost of removing equipment. And if especially in the scenario where they didn't explain fully some of the technical aspects, you know, the shutter was going to come down at a certain point where they said, sorry, but there's not enough on the table for us to really move forward. And of course, your average company has another 100 similar startups with great ideas knocking on the door, so they have to decide where to focus their energy.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I have one more story.
Okay, go ahead.
And I want to invite back the audience over there at the conference. My second story regards another failure, really, in the collaboration, and this was also regarding fuel efficiency or ship efficiency. A company which had approached the ship owner with a fuel efficiency proposal. And where over the course of the conversations, the efficiency provider, if we can call them that, the efficiency provider, they agreed to change their value proposition. So it moved from a fuel efficiency offer to a kind of maintenance cost reduction offer. And that's because they could. So the saving they were looking at was around 1%, which is very difficult.
Yeah, it's very small. It's like a big difference with a big fleet, right?
But it makes a big difference. It's
still very hard to prove.
It's very hard to prove. So there was an agreement that it's better that we look at maintenance cost reduction instead. And when you look at these kind of small savings, it's extremely important that you have a test plan that can show how you do this, and that you can nullify all other potential factors. So anyway, we had the efficiency provider's manager, the sales manager. He was so they had agreed on the ship, that the trial, and that in itself is a very kind of limiting factor, because that ship is on a commercial trade and it has to receive these this is Copenhagen. It had to receive the fuel additive in a specific port at a specific time, right? So it's very, very time critical.
It's on a schedule. It's
very time critical. And anyway, this manager was on a flight to arrive to the port, and as the trial was going to go from the starting of a journey to the end of a journey, it was essential that he was on board the ship before they entered the port.
So the measuring could be very strict.
Exactly. So he ordered a helicopter. So he needed to get on that ship while it was still out at sea. Meanwhile, back at the ship owner's office, the project manager looked at the test plan and could see that the sales manager had still not updated the test plan in accordance with the requirements. And what happened was that the management at the ship owner took a rapid decision. They looked at this test plan and they were like, this is not updated, and we are not confident to do this trial now. And so they took a management decided to halt the trial. And this was while the fuel efficiency manager had arrived to the port and was about to embark on his helicopter. Imagine that.
So he got a phone call and
it's like
scrubbed.
Scrubbed.
And did they ever follow up, or did they ever pick it up again, or?
So this was kind of a huge, I think, a lack of communication for sure. The fuel efficiency company didn't understand the risk perceptions with the shipping company. And yet again, we see an example of kind of arrogance, that our solution is bulletproof and we are certain we can execute a trial according to requirements. But it doesn't matter what you say, it matters what you do. Yeah. And it matters what you can show that you will do. So they were actually challenging the trust they had with the shipping company.
So there was
So what happened after this was like goodbye forever.
Okay.
It never picked up again. And yet again, who took the risk in the end?
Yeah. And this is something that's not appreciated.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a lot of enthusiasm, I guess. Let's go ahead, get in touch with someone with loads of money and loads of ships, and let's try it out.
Yeah.
But there is, again, exit strategy is a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
do you think there's an element in this space of sometimes solutions being found and then looking for a problem rather than problems being found and looking for a solution, if you know what I mean?
I think this is a very common challenge that startups do, where they have a great solution and they try to find a problem to solve it. Yeah. Something I can mention in this regard is also that we have seen examples of corporates having an open portfolio, like an open site.
Yeah, where you can access with your ideas, you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So share your ideas, and then the corporate will come back and say whether this is something they would like to move forward with. And these have some major kind of negative consequences. First of all, it creates a huge administrative burden for the corporate. But I think the most important thing here, and this is important for startups to understand, that you need to be aware of the problem first. You need to know what needs to be solved, because there's little point in coming with a solution if it doesn't fit with the problem. Yeah. And so if you have an open platform on a website where you can share your ideas, you have no idea if whether that meets a problem or not. Yeah. So any successful startup need to understand the challenge of the corporate.
So they should start right at the seed of the idea. They should immediately start investigating and co-creating solutions.
I think so.
Rather than wasting all that precious time and going down the wrong blind alleys.
Yeah, and of course there are risks involved with this, because then maybe the startup will not have all the ownership or the rights.
Yeah, there's a risk that it's gobbled up. Great idea, thanks very much.
Yeah.
And there are mechanisms to deal with that, right? There are, these companies have to act ethically, they have to take care of where they get their IP
so
from. So
in general, the highest opportunity of success is when you have understood the problem of the corporate and you are engaging with the corporate to create trust. Both ways.
Yeah. Should we wrap up here?
I think Copenhagen is cold today. So I think we should say thank you for listening to all of you over there at the Maritime SheEO conference. And we look forward to engaging with you live on any Q&A session that will follow. So
goodbye from here.
Goodbye from here.
And hello, maybe.